Let me ask you a question. What do elite Navy SEALs, world-class CEOs, and legendary champions have in common? It's not money, it's not raw talent, and it's not luck. It's something quieter, something invisible, yet more powerful than any strategy, gadget, or playbook. Their secret weapon is mental discipline. While the world obsesses over hacks and shortcuts, the top 1% have mastered their minds. In high-stress moments when others panic, they stay focused. When chaos erupts, they find clarity. And when failure knocks, they rise again. Navy SEALs train to control their breathing under fire. CEOs make billion-dollar decisions under pressure. Champions push through exhaustion, doubt, and defeat to keep fighting. Why? Because they've conditioned themselves to do so. Discipline isn't sexy, but it wins. Discipline is what gets you up when motivation fails. It's what builds resilience, confidence, and consistency. The good news? You don't have to be a SEAL, a CEO, or gold medalist to use it. Mental discipline is trainable. And once you develop it, it becomes your own secret weapon. In a world where everyone is chasing more followers, more likes, more attention, the real power lies in mastering less distraction, less emotion-driven decision-making, less self-doubt. So if you want to rise to the top of your game, don't just train your body or your business, train your mind. When we look at high achievers in vastly different fields, whether it's the battlefield, the boardroom, or the sports arena, it's tempting to focus on their external qualities. We admire their physical strength, strategic intelligence, or elite-level skills. But beneath all that, there is a common foundation that enables these individuals to perform at such a high level, often under extreme pressure. That foundation is mental discipline. Mental discipline is not just about willpower or grit. It's a deliberate and practiced ability to control one's thoughts, emotions, and actions in the face of stress, uncertainty, and temptation. Navy SEALs, for example, are not necessarily the biggest or fastest in their training classes. In fact, many of the top performers are those who simply refuse to give up. They've trained their minds to stay calm in life-threatening situations, to override fear with focus, and to make clear decisions when every second counts. CEOs, on the other hand, operate in high-stakes environments where millions or even billions of dollars are on the line. They're not just reacting to business trends. They're steering the ship in turbulent waters, making judgment calls with limited information, often under immense pressure from investors, employees, and the market. What gives them the edge isn't always a high IQ or better education. It's their ability to maintain emotional regulation, mental clarity, and long-term vision when others would crumble or react impulsively. Similarly, champions in sports are constantly tested, not just by their opponents, but by their own inner voices of doubt, fatigue, and fear. What sets them apart is their capacity to silence the noise, block out distractions, and stay laser-focused on their objective. They've trained their minds just as rigorously as their bodies. Across all these disciplines, it becomes clear success is not just about what you do, but how you think. Mental discipline is the invisible thread that connects excellence across all domains. It allows ordinary people to do extraordinary things, not because they don't feel fear, pressure, or pain, but because they've learned how to face it, manage it, and keep moving forward. In moments of high pressure, whether on a battlefield, in a boardroom negotiation, or during the final seconds of a championship match, the difference between success and failure often isn't determined by skill alone. It's determined by how well a person can manage their mind in the heat of the moment. Talent may get you noticed, and resources might give you a head start, but it's mental training that allows you to perform consistently and effectively when it matters most. Consider this. The most talented soldier who panics in combat is a liability. A brilliant executive who loses composure during a financial crisis can make poor decisions that damage their company. A gifted athlete who succumbs to anxiety in a critical moment may choke. Despite years of physical preparation, in all these cases, the absence of mental training neutralizes the advantages of natural talent or favorable condition. Mental training is about building the capacity to remain grounded under stress. It means developing the ability to slow down your breathing when your heart is racing, to think clearly when your mind wants to spiral into fear, and to act deliberately when everything inside you wants to react impulsively. This doesn't happen by accident. It comes through disciplined practice, whether it's mindfulness techniques, visualization, cold exposure, or repeatedly putting oneself into high-pressure simulations to build psychological resilience. Elite performers understand this. Navy SEALs endure Hell Week not just to test their physical limits, but to train their minds to function through sleep deprivation, fear, and extreme discomfort. CEOs often work with executive coaches and undergo scenario planning to remain composed during mergers, crises, or downturns. Champions use mental rehearsals and pressure drills to condition themselves to stay sharp in clutch moments. The key is that mental training transforms pressure from a threat into a stimulus for peak performance. Instead of shrinking under the weight of expectations, those who've conditioned their minds rise with clarity, focus, and control. They're not guessing or hoping they'll stay composed. They've prepared for it, and in doing so, they demonstrate a powerful truth. While talent and resources are helpful, they're not enough. It's the disciplined mind that determines who thrives when the heat is on in high-stakes environments, where the consequences of a single decision can mean life or death, profit or loss, victory or defeat. Emotional control becomes more than just a helpful trait. It becomes a necessity. The ability to remain emotionally stable under pressure is what separates elite performers from those who fall apart when things get tough. It's not that these individuals don't feel fear, stress, or frustration. It's that they've learned to respond rather than react. Elite performers understand that emotions are powerful drivers of behavior, but they also recognize that unchecked emotions can cloud judgment, narrow perspective, and derail performance. A Navy SEAL cannot afford to let anger or panic dictate their actions during a combat mission. A CEO must not let fear paralyze them during a critical decision point in a financial downturn. An athlete cannot lose focus due to crowd pressure or a previous mistake. They must stay in the moment. These individuals develop a kind of emotional mastery, not by suppressing their feelings, but by learning how to regulate and channel them. This level of control is built through intentional mental practices. It may involve deep breathing, mindfulness meditation, visualization of worst-case scenarios, or reframing techniques that shift perception under pressure. For example, instead of interpreting stress as a threat, elite performers train themselves to see it as a sign that they're being stretched, challenged, and prepared for growth. This mindset shift helps them maintain clarity and focus even in chaos. Focus is the second critical half of this equation. Distractions are everywhere. External noise, internal doubts, shifting circumstances, and in high-stakes moments, they intensify. But top performers know how to narrow their attention to what truly matters. A Navy SEAL will lock in on their objective despite gunfire or disorientation. A CEO will concentrate on the data that informs the best decision, not on the fear of how the market might react. A champion athlete will block out the crowd and fix their gaze on the goal. This kind of focus doesn't come from trying harder in the moment. It comes from conditioning, doing the work before the moment arrives. Through repetition, practice, and constant mental sharpening, these individuals build a mental filter that separates the signal from the noise. They know what to ignore and what to act on. In sum, emotional control and focus are not optional soft skills. They're critical performance tools. They allow high achievers to access their full potential when the pressure is on, to lead others through uncertainty, and to execute with precision when the margin for error is razor thin. It's not a coincidence that those at the top of their field possess these qualities. It's a reflection of the mental discipline they've deliberately built over time. One of the biggest myths in personal development is that motivation is the key to success. People wait to feel inspired before they act. They depend on a rush of energy, an uplifting speech, or a moment of clarity to start working toward their goals. But the truth is, motivation is unreliable. It's fleeting. It comes and goes like the weather. You can't count on it to show up every day, especially when things get tough, boring, or uncertain. That's why the most successful people in the world don't rely on motivation. They rely on discipline. Discipline is the internal force that pushes you to do what needs to be done, whether you feel like it or not. It's the decision to act in alignment with your values, your mission, and your goals, regardless of mood, emotion, or circumstances. For Navy SEALs, discipline means waking up before dawn to train in a freezing cold, even after days of no sleep. For CEOs, it means showing up to lead a company through chaos, making tough calls when the easy path would be to delay or deflect. For champions, it means training hard on the days when they feel exhausted, discouraged, or overlooked. Discipline builds trust in yourself. Every time you follow through on a promise to yourself, even a small one, you strengthen your identity as someone who shows up, someone who finishes, someone who doesn't wait to be in the mood to perform. Over time, that self-trust becomes an unshakable foundation. It's what keeps you grounded when others waver. It's what gives you a sense of stability in a world that's always shifting. More importantly, discipline creates momentum. Where motivation might spark a beginning, only discipline sustains the effort required for mastery. It keeps the wheels turning when the initial excitement fades, when results are slow, and when obstacles arise. It allows for progress in the absence of visible rewards. That's how true growth happens. Not in the highlight reel, but in the hidden hours when no one is watching. People often look at elite performers and think they must be so motivated. But ask any one of them and they'll tell you it's not motivation that gets them through their toughest days. It's discipline. It's the commitment to their craft, their team, their purpose. It's the rituals and routines they've built, repeated again and again until excellence becomes a habit, not an event, not a one-time push, but a way of life. Discipline is also what carries you through failure. When a plan falls apart, when rejection hits, or when results don't come fast enough, motivation can vanish in an instant. But discipline keeps you moving. It tells you to show up again tomorrow, to put one foot in front of the other, and to keep building brick by brick. That level of consistency isn't glamorous, but it's what greatness is made of. Resilience is often described as the ability to bounce back from adversity, but for elite performers, it's more than that. It's the ability to remain steady during the storm, to endure pain, pressure, and uncertainty without losing direction or identity and clarity. The ability to see what truly matters amid noise and chaos is equally essential. Together, resilience and clarity form the mental backbone of those who operate at the highest levels. But they're not qualities we're born with. They're built, shaped, and strengthened through intentional mental conditioning. Consider resilience first. When a Navy SEAL is dropped into hostile territory or a mission goes sideways, they don't have the luxury of panic. Their training has hardwired them to manage fear, regulate stress, and maintain function under duress. That resilience doesn't emerge in the heat of the moment. It is forged long before, during endless drills, extreme challenges, and mental conditioning exercises that test their limits and teach their minds to endure. The same applies to high-performing CEOs. Business, like battle, is unpredictable. Market crashes, leadership crises, regulatory changes, any of these can hit without warning. Resilient leaders aren't just reactive, they're prepared. They've built psychological flexibility and inner strength through years of navigating volatility, learning from failure, and pushing through discomfort. They don't fall apart when things get hard. Instead, they fall back on the mental framework they've trained and sharpened through repetition. Athletes, too, develop resilience through constant exposure to pressure, loss, and pain. They are taught not to fear discomfort, but to embrace it as part of the process. Whether it's a grueling training session, a heartbreaking defeat, or a long recovery from injury, Champions bounce back because they've conditioned their minds to process setbacks not as the end, but as fuel. And then there's clarity, that rare ability to see through the fog of emotion, distraction, and complexity. Clarity allows top performers to make good decisions quickly, to avoid overreaction, and to stay connected to their goals even when the world feels like it's spinning. This too is a trained skill. Mental conditioning practices like visualization, meditation, journaling, and scenario planning help create the space between stimulus and response. In that space, clarity lives. Clarity allows a Navy SEAL to prioritize objectives under fire. It allows a CEO to know when to pivot and when to hold the line. It allows a champion to ignore the scoreboard and focus on execution one moment at a time. Without clarity, even the most resilient mind can become reactive, scattered, and overwhelmed. But with it, every challenge becomes more navigable, every obstacle more manageable. What all of this reveals is that resilience and clarity don't come from avoiding struggle. They come from repeated exposure to it, combined with purposeful reflection and mental discipline. Over time, this process hardens the mind while keeping it sharp, calm, and clear. The people who thrive in adversity are those who have chosen to lean into it time and again until they've built a mind that doesn't break, it bends, recalibrates, and continues forward. There's a common misconception that mental strength is a gift, something you're either born with or not. We tend to believe that Navy SEALs, world-class CEOs, and championship athletes are somehow wired differently, that their ability to stay focused, composed, and resilient under pressure is a rare trait granted only to the chosen few. But that belief is not only false, it's disempowering. The truth is, mental discipline is not an inherited talent. It's a skill. And like any skill, it can be learned, practiced, and strengthened by anyone who is willing to do the work. The mind is a muscle. If you train it, it grows stronger. If you neglect it, it stays fragile. Elite performers aren't mentally tough because they were born that way. They are mentally tough because they've made the decision to cultivate that toughness. They've exposed themselves to discomfort deliberately. They've practiced stillness in chaos, clarity under pressure, and action without hesitation. They didn't wake up one day with discipline. They built it slowly and intentionally. This is a critical truth for anyone looking to elevate their life or career. You don't need to be in the military, run a corporation, or win gold medals to develop mental discipline. You just need commitment and consistency. It starts small, waking up at the time you said you would, sticking to the habit you promised yourself, following through on the task you said even when you don't feel like it. These seemingly minor decisions, repeated daily, lay the foundation for extraordinary mental strength. There are also specific tools that anyone can use to accelerate this growth. Breathing exercises, for instance, help regulate your nervous system and keep you calm in high-stress situations. Journaling can help you gain perspective, process emotions, and stay connected to your goals. Cold exposure, physical training, or voluntary discomfort like fasting or silence build mental endurance by teaching your brain to tolerate challenge without panic. Meditation trains focus and emotional regulation. Visualization sharpens your ability to perform under pressure by rehearsing success before it happens. What's important is not the specific tool, but the intention behind it. To train your mind the same way you would train your body. To condition it to perform reliably, even when you're tired, stressed, or uncertain. To transform mental discipline from a vague idea into a practiced reality. When you embrace the idea that mental strength is trainable, you shift from being a passive participant in your life to an active architect of it. You stop waiting for circumstances to change, and instead you change your ability to respond to them. Over time, this builds not just discipline, but confidence, the unshakable belief that no matter what happens, you have the tools to handle it. And that belief, earned through consistent training, is available to anyone bold enough to pursue it. In today's world, we are surrounded by noise, constant updates, notifications, opinions, and expectations. The pressure to respond, to impress, to be seen and validated by others is overwhelming. From social media likes to public recognition, from performance metrics to external praise, It's easy to fall into the trap of measuring our worth by what others think or how the world reacts. But elite performers, Navy SEALs, top CEOs, and champions know a powerful truth. True success isn't found by chasing external validation, but by mastering internal control. Distraction is the enemy of excellence. When your attention is scattered, your energy follows. When your focus is divided between what you're doing and what others might think about it, your performance suffers. High achievers understand this. That's why they deliberately eliminate distractions and turn inward. They don't seek constant reassurance or applause. They build self-awareness, self-discipline, and self-direction. Their compass is internal, not external. A Navy SEAL doesn't carry out a mission hoping someone will congratulate them on Instagram. Their focus is survival, precision, teamwork, and objective completion. Every second counts, and there is no room for distraction. Similarly, a CEO steering a company through turbulent waters doesn't base decisions on popularity. They're guided by vision, values, and long-term strategy. And athletes at the top of their game don't perform for the crowd. They perform from within, driven by purpose and process rather than applause. Inner control begins with clarity, knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what your mission is. When that clarity is strong, the distractions of the outside world lose their power. You're no longer pulled off course by criticism or flattery. You don't need permission to act or reassurance to keep going. You have your own standard, your own code, and that's what guides your behavior. This doesn't mean elite performers are immune to doubt or temptation. They simply have tools to manage them. Many use mindfulness to stay grounded in the present moment, reducing the pull of anxious thoughts or external noise. Others create strict routines to reduce decision fatigue and stay focused. Some go as far as digitally detoxing, limiting their exposure to social media or external opinion to protect their mental space. These aren't luxuries, they're necessities for anyone serious about peak performance. What's more, the pursuit of external validation can actually rob you of your potential. When your efforts are motivated by applause, your goals become distorted. You start optimizing for attention rather than mastery. You become reactive rather than proactive, constantly shifting your focus based on what the world wants rather than what you're here to do. That creates burnout, confusion, and shallow success. But when you commit to inner control, when you train your mind to stay locked in despite the noise, you tap into a deeper, more sustainable power. You make choices based on intention, not reaction. You show up consistently, even when no one's watching. And you find fulfillment not in temporary recognition, but in long-term growth, contribution, and integrity. This is the path elite performers walk. Not because it's easy, but because it's effective. Fewer distractions, sharper focus, stronger identity. The result isn't just better outcomes. It's a more grounded, purpose-driven life. There's a certain mystique surrounding elite performers. People often look at Navy SEALs, Fortune 500 CEOs, Olympic champions, and think they possess some hidden formula, some elite edge that others could never access. But if you ask them what truly sets them apart, their answers are surprisingly simple. They made the decision again and again to keep showing up, to do the work when it was hard, to stay disciplined when it was dull, to keep fighting even when no one was watching and there were no guarantees of success. This is the real secret weapon. It's not glamorous. It doesn't come with applause. It often involves long hours, uncomfortable conversations, early mornings, and quiet sacrifices. But it's also the very thing that builds unshakable strength over time. While others are chasing shortcuts or waiting for perfect conditions, elite performers are in the arena, doing the reps, refining their craft, failing, learning, adapting, rising again. The truth is, most people give up too soon. They let discomfort stop them. They get discouraged when progress slows or when recognition doesn't come quickly. They look for hacks, and hacks don't build depth, they build dependency. Elite performers don't rely on tricks, they rely on consistency. Even in the face of boredom, fatigue, and failure, They understand that the most important growth happens after the initial excitement fades, when you're no longer inspired, but you keep going anyway. This choice to keep going is not a one-time decision. It's a decision made daily, sometimes hourly. When the alarm goes off before sunrise and your body aches from yesterday's training, you make the choice. When your plan hits a wall and everything in you wants to quit or take the easy way out, you make the choice. When fear whispers that you're not good enough and no one is cheering for you, you still make the choice. That relentless commitment builds identity. It becomes who you are. You're no longer someone who tries to be disciplined or successful. You are disciplined. You are committed. You are the kind of person who shows up no matter what. That identity fuels behavior, and that behavior creates results. And that's why this so-called secret weapon is within reach for anyone willing to claim it. It doesn't require genius, wealth, or luck. It requires resolve. It requires grit. It requires a willingness to lean into discomfort over and over again until you discover just how powerful you really are. Not because of some secret advantage, but because you refuse to back down when it mattered most. So what does this all mean for you, for me, for anyone dare enough to reach for more? It means the playing field is more level than we think. The qualities that define Navy SEALs, top CEOs, and world-class champions aren't locked behind elite doors. They are built, not born. Developed through repeated choices, quiet sacrifices, and consistent mental training. The secret weapon isn't a secret at all. It's the decision to take ownership of your mind, your habits, your focus, and your response to pressure. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need to feel motivated every day. What you need is to make the decision to show up, to stay in the fight, and to do the work when it matters most, especially when no one is watching. Mental toughness is not about being fearless. It's about doing it anyway. Discipline isn't about being rigid. It's about staying aligned with your purpose. And greatness isn't about one big moment. It's about 1,000 quiet, relentless ones that build the foundation of excellence. So if you're waiting for a sign, here it is. Start building your secret weapon today. The world doesn't need more spectators. It needs more people willing to step into the arena, focused, disciplined, and unstoppable. Thank you.